Hello everybody, welcome to the behind the scenes part. I'll be your host today, Mike Smith. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Delaware, focusing in narrative therapy and geek therapy, and I'm a self-styled expert in all things geek. You've heard me say that before if you're watching this video. So I had a lot of requests to talk about 3D printing, as I do a lot of 3D printing for the show, make all sorts of models. I'm working on some right now, might be interesting. So one of our cases recently that we covered this year was Julie Ray, and we asked audiences to put their vote in for what I should print, and the consensus pretty much came back that I should print a duck. And I figured that since the attack with Julie Ray happened in a bathroom, there'd be nothing better than a duck that you would find in a bathroom, a rubber ducky. So I found a good rubber ducky model, and I'm working on him right now. He's still in the process of being painted, but it's a good representation of what I do. I've also nicknamed it. Now, mind you, I haven't gotten any actual permission for this name yet, but I think it's going to stick. You guys can tell me. I want to introduce you guys to Dr. Grande. Dr. Grande. Yeah, when I finish painting him, he's going to have a beard like Dr. Grande, and I'm going to make sure that bow tie is painted really nice. So this is one of my 3D models. I printed that on this printer right here, which is my Creality LR002 resin printer. Resin printers are a very interesting way of printing because they can get a lot of layers, just a lot of layers, because it's using a liquid format to create the layers. Now, the liquid that's used is photopolymer resin. This is Elegu photopolymer resin. It's in gray, as I like to use gray as a base material. It allows me to see all the details. It's not too dark, but it's also not going to reflect too much light. The way that this printer works, take off the hood here. You can see that there's a print bed is up here, and it's upside down. So the print bed actually lowers down into this. It's called the vat. That is where I pour all of the liquid. Now, the vat also has a clear bottom, and just beneath that is an LCD screen, and it's pretty small. And beneath the LCD screen, behind the control panel, is a very powerful UV light. That UV light shines up when the machine is turned on, and the LCD screen will block out everything except for the shape of the layer that's supposed to be printed. Okay, so you get a full shape, and then the print bed will raise up, allowing some of the fluid to come back underneath of it, and then it'll lower back down, so there's only a really thin layer of the fluid left, and then the light will come on again, cure that layer, and then it'll raise up and repeat the process. And those layers are incredibly, incredibly thin. Because they're so thin, you get so many layers, you can get a lot of detail out of your machine. It's one of the reasons why I really like this machine, is because it gets so many layers and so much detail. The only problems with this machine are post-processing takes a lot, and the resin stinks. You have to have a lot of ventilation if you're going to do it, or you get air purifiers. And I have some air purifiers that go inside the machine, inside the hood, and a big air purifier underneath the desk to help keep this room from becoming toxic from the fumes. And even more important, from them getting out of the room and stinking up the rest of the house. I also have windows in here that I can open, fans that can help exhaust some of that when I'm running this printer. Most of the time, if it's not running, I don't keep any resin in. So the resin printer does a great job of making those really detailed models. Post-processing uses this machine right here. This is my Elegu Mercury cure and bath station. And it uses a vat that I put rubbing alcohol into to help clean off any models that come up. It also has a magnetic rotator inside the base, and in the vat there's a magnetic disc that will spin around and agitate all of that rubbing alcohol when the model is inside, in a little basket that hangs from the top of it. The hood comes up too. The wonderful thing about it, though, is that it's not just for washing the model, it's for doing a final cure on the model. The outside of it might still be less cured because the UV light's coming up from the bottom, right? It's not coming from the sides. So as a 3D model, we might cure the sides to make sure that everything's hardened. This machine has a rotating bed on the bottom that can rotate very slowly, and a bank of high-power UV lights behind there. And the hood keeps those UV lights from blinding anybody outside or doing anything adverse that UV light likes to do. So when a model is finished here, take it off the bed, get it through a bath, clip off any supports that are needed for it, and then get it through a cure. It comes out as an unpainted, finished, as an unpainted model. And then I can finish it with paints, prime it, paint it, and present it on the show. The other machine I've got here, my older machine, it's a Creality Ender 3 Pro, and it is a PLA printer, a PLA ABS printer. It uses a plastic material that comes in a very fine filament, 1.75 millimeters, and that filament passes through this port right here, which is called the extruder. It's just a motor that makes sure that the filament keeps feeding through it when it needs to. It also makes sure the filament gets pulled back when it needs to as well. And if you look close, you can see I have a TARDIS right here on the knob. It's my inner geek. I had to make it special. The filament then comes through what's called a Bowden tube to the hot end. The hot end heats up to temperatures. Now, for PLA, I use 200 degrees C. For ABS, might go up higher than that to 210 or 220. So very, very hot, hot enough to melt that plastic. And that's exactly what happens. The plastic gets pushed through by the extruder. The hot end heats up a tip that is about 0.4 millimeters in diameter. And that plastic, that PLA, is then forced through that to lay down a line on a print bed. This print bed is also what's called a heated bed. So it heats up to about 60 degrees to keep that plastic on the bottom layer nice and sticky, tacky, because you want to make sure that bottom layer stays adhered. You keep it in one place because this bed moves back and forth. It's not just, that's why you get three ranges of motion. You have the hot end that moves back and forth on this arm here, and you have the bed that moves back and forth. So you get those two layers, and then the whole thing goes up. The whole arm goes up as you build up in layers. You want the bed to have a lot of good adhesion so that the new layers that are being put down adhere to the previous layer. If the bottom layer breaks free and just starts moving around, then you just have your extruder continuing to push material through that small hole, and you end up with what's called spaghettification. You have a whole bird's nest or a bowl of spaghetti of just this really thin filament just laying on the bed when you're done. And that's a shame because you waste a whole lot of filament. So I want to make sure that the bed is really nice and going to have a nice adhesion to it and keep that base of that model nice and secure. Heated bed does that nicely because it keeps the ABS or the PLA nice and tacky, and so it keeps adhesion. This particular model also, I use a removable magnetic bed liner that's textured. So the texture also helps with that adhesion. There are a lot of people who print and use glass beds, and they swear by them because they're easier to level, they heat up faster, and they just like them better. They're more easily replaced. They think, I don't know, I've never used a glass bed, but I do know that this particular type of bed is so much easier for the pre-processing, because a lot of people who use glass beds end up using things like painter's tape to give some adhesion and texture. They also use things like hairspray to make sure the model doesn't move. I don't have to do any of that. I just use this and keep it in place. And as long as my bed is nice and level, I've never had a problem with adhesion. Problems I end up having with adhesion is when my bed gets unleveled and I have to just go in and level it. Okay. The other thing that I use when I do 3D printing are some computer programs. This is my laptop right here. This laptop is actually directly connected to my Ender 3. I print directly off of it, so the laptop almost never turns off because that printer is almost always going. It's not going right now because it's a little loud, and it probably would drown me out sitting right here. So I'm not running it right now. The Creality LR002, it's not quite as loud because it has very little in the way of mechanics. It's just very low hum, but I'm also not running it right now because, again, there's a little bit of a sound issue, and I didn't want it to get picked up. But when I do run this machine, it runs directly from the laptop. Now, the resin printer doesn't run directly from the laptop. It doesn't have a direct connection. So I use a thumb drive, I load the model on the thumb drive, and then allow it to do its thing, which means that both of these printers can run independently. I don't have to babysit them. I don't have to sit with them. So I can start a print, make sure that it's adhering to the base, and then go do my thing, which is great because sometimes these prints can take hours and hours and hours. Let me give an example. One of the things I'm working on right now for one of our new episodes is for the Bogdanov twins. The Bogdanov twins decided to go with a Bitcoin. I don't know if you can see that, but it is a Bitcoin. It's a very simple model. It's just a circle on a base. It's going to stand up. That is going to take about 4 hours and 38 minutes to print on this machine. And it would take even longer on that machine because there's way more layers on that machine than there is on that machine. But since it's such a simple design, I don't feel the necessary to use the high impact and high layer count machine to get a lot of detail. I'm going to get just the right amount of detail on the other machine. So after I finish this video, I'll start that up, and you guys will be able to see the Bitcoin on the table probably in a couple of weeks after we do our next episode, and Dr. Grande makes his appearance on the table, and that's going to be really fun. So always remember, if you're working in a lab, safety glasses, always important. If I were working with the resin, I would have my safety glasses on, and I would be using nitrile gloves to make sure it doesn't get on my fingers. Like I said, the resin is actually a neurotoxin when it's wet, so you don't want to get it on your fingers and then end up with your fingers in your mouth, because it can be really bad. So I don't do that. I try and make sure I stay safe in my lab, use all the safety precautions I need. I also very much use things like Dremel tools and rotating tools, sanding tools. So the safety glasses come in handy with those as well. I have another pair of safety glasses that I just got. These are for my laser printer. These are safe for the eyes to look at the laser. My laser engraver and cutter, it'll be working shortly as well. And I'll be having some fun cutting out pieces for my hurdy-gurdy. I'm going to build my own hurdy-gurdy, and I'll be able to show it to you guys when it's done. And I'm going to be doing some more laser engraving things and having fun with that. I might incorporate some of those into the things I put on the tables. And that'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. I'm glad to see you guys enjoying Grande Studios, all that it has with the murder part and the alien lizard humanoids, and coming soon from this lab, a slightly different angle from where we are right now, the movie part, starring yours truly, talking about movies and how they portray mental health issues and how they handle treatment in some ways. Some movies do it really well, some do it really poorly, and some of them, somewhere in the middle. I really look forward to talking about those kinds of things for you guys, and then getting your feedback on what you think. Now, as Jeff usually says, and Dr. Grande usually says, please put any comments or questions you have in the comments section down below, and we'll see you next time if we do another behind the scenes part, which we probably will. It might not be me, might be Jeff, it might be Dr. Grande, but it might be me. We'll see you guys.